Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, you've got to protect yourself from easy money. We're going to get into that with our popular financial literacy update. But finally, it's almost over, days until the election. We are all thankful about it. I have two great guests, and we're going to talk about what else, the final days of the election, and I think we'll do that after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, we might as well get right to it. We have a busy show today with lots of elections to talk about. Joining me is Brad Christman. He's with Radio Pennsylvania. All right, how many radio stations do you cover?
We have about 55 stations across the state.
Is that
That's all?
Only 55. Yeah. And John Micek, he's a great reporter. He's the editorial page editor of the Harrisburg Patriot News PennLive. You got to follow him and read what he writes. All right, look. You guys are veterans. That doesn't mean you're old. It just means you're veterans, right, John?
Yes.
I'll start with you. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No. I mean, what else?
Go about how strange and unusual
I get asked this
is.
question like 3 times a week at least, and it's always on Sundays when I'm like comparing broccoli and Giant or something. But I mean, it's my 6th presidential cycle, Terry, and I don't know that I've ever seen anything this strange, where you have so many eruptions all the time with candidates who are so universally reviled by so many voters. Right. And here we are on this most of the markets where this airs on the Sunday before Election Day.
Yeah, finally.
This tedious baton death march that we finally brought us to this point. If somebody goes back to write the history of this.
Yeah.
Between Trump's remarks about Mexicans, about
women,
Muslims, his fight with the Gold Star family, Clinton with the repeated email blowups, and somehow how the race could be finally determined by Anthony Weiner, of all people. It's just surreal.
Great. You covered a lot of these too.
I have, and I am so happy we're in the waning hours and days of this that I want to run outside, jump into a big pile of leaves, and roll around like a kid. That's how happy I am. This is almost over.
Yeah. I mean, what's fascinating about this, Brad, is just how unhappy the voters are.
Yes.
I mean, I've never seen an election in which it's like, well, I'm going to vote for this candidate because I don't like either of them, but I dislike the other candidate more, right?
Exactly. I mean, I can't remember an election where more people were voting against someone than voting for someone. That's what we have right now.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about it. It looks like Pennsylvania, the Clinton lead about 4. That's not that far away from where Barack Obama was 4 years ago. I know it's unusual, and we could have this Trump support that we're not picking up in the polls. Most of us don't think, but you can't rule that out. Right. It's still a likely Clinton victory. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, almost every political prognosticator, Charlie Cook, Stu Rothenberg, they all have the stat, I think, likely Dem now. I mean, if you look at the polling data, Clinton's up by an average of 4.5% in Real Clear Politics. Your poll that came out last week was by 11 points, a larger margin. The mathematics of this for Trump are difficult. You look at the state map, and broad swaths of it are red. The only problem is that nobody lives there. And you look at the parts of it that are blue and the density of that population, and that becomes the traditional Republican problem in Pennsylvania.
Now, the real problem is, do Clinton supporters turn out with the African... Go ahead, finish my thought there.
Well, you're absolutely right. Will they turn out? And the question is, how many people have been turned off by this entire election cycle? But I think the only argument for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania at this point is the anecdotal story about driving around and seeing nothing but Trump signs and seeing no Clinton signs. I mean, what is that going to mean on Election Day? But signs don't vote. But if you're going to put a sign in your yard, you're certainly leaning one way or the other.
Yeah.
But
now,
the thing that I contemplate is that very question, the hidden Trump vote, and to the extent that there might be a hidden Clinton vote that the polls aren't catching either.
That's true. Good point.
With these never Hillary people and these never Donald people who, when they get into the voting booth, are going to have that coming to Jesus moment, and they're going to look at their two choices, and they're going to make that gut choice based on, whatever is the more palatable or less palatable of the two. And I don't know the polls have caught that up, and maybe we're not seeing that, and that could swing the race too.
But there are two groups in particular for Clinton: African Americans and millennials. Right? They're 30% of her support. And it's not as though she's exciting that group of voters as Obama did.
And my question coming out of the primaries and coming out of the convention is how many of the millennials who lined up for Bernie Sanders, who were in the political process for the very first time in their lives, tasted the sourness of politics? What happened right before with the email revelations coming out before the convention? How many of those millennials, for the first time, are now going to be completely turned off and will not turn out?
That's right.
And you see some of that in the tracking data too, though. I mean, we're starting to see an uptake in people who are voting affirmatively rather than negatively. I've talked to, and this is again anecdotal, interviews with millennial voters in Philadelphia, former Sanders voters who were on the front lines on campus, who've now succumbed to realpolitik and realized that Hillary Clinton is the real choice.
Right.
I think African American voters, despite what we've seen as an enthusiasm gap, are going to realize that voting anywhere else is contra to their interests. And I've talked with black political leaders and black religious leaders who are cautioning their constituencies against voting for the libertarian Gary Johnson or against voting for Jill Stein, saying, look, this is a zero-sum thing. If you want your interests looked after, then Clinton is the way to go.
All right, we're going to run to a quick break. We got a couple more elections to get through. We'll do that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, now celebrating 100 years as the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. Our final pre-election show. Thank goodness everybody's happy about that. We were talking about that in the last segment. John Micek and Brad Christman, reporters sitting across the table from me. All right, the Senate race, it's one of the most important in the country. Incumbent Pat Toomey against Katie McGinty. It's close. McGinty has led in most of the more recent polls. Give us a quick update.
Well, it's been back and forth, as you said, in polls. Some have been McGinty up, some have been Toomey up by a couple of points, some have shown it within the margin of error. Certainly, this is going to be a very tight race. Now, Senator Toomey has a couple of things going against him, and we talked when you appeared on our pre-election show about this. And the two problems that Toomey has and the questions that he doesn't want to answer involve the Supreme Court situation and Donald Trump. And for us, when our pre-election special was being put together and we invited him multiple times, he didn't come. And I haven't seen him. That really does
surprise me.
50-some radio stations, free statewide media, and I think it's because he doesn't want to be put in a situation where he has to answer those questions.
Yeah, for the record, Senator Toomey has not endorsed Trump. He hasn't said whether he will vote for him or not. But he has said he won't vote for. Who won't he vote for?
He will not be voting
Gary
for
Johnson.
Hillary Clinton. I mean, Terry, we had the same thing. We invited Senator Toomey in for an endorsement interview before the PennLive editorial board. We ended up endorsing Senator Toomey. I should probably add, surprising some readers. But we pressed him repeatedly on the Trump question, and he says he finds a lot about him that's unpalatable. He wouldn't say that he had disqualified him. I don't guess that he'll answer who he'll vote for before Tuesday if he's managed to hold out for this long. Politically, I understand it. He's in a bit of a box. He can't say, yes, I'm voting for him and risk losing Southeastern Republicans, or no, I'm voting against him and risk leaving conservative in the West. The thing that we got to point out about this is also one of the most expensive Senate races in the country. Record-shattering, $118 million between the campaigns and outside groups. Republican groups in the last 2 weeks of the race alone are pumping in another $10 million in TV buys. It's incredible.
By the way, we invited Senator Toomey and Katie McGinty to debate on WGAL and with my center at Franklin and Marshall. he agreed, but the McGinty people wouldn't. So
Really?
I don't know.
This is actually one of the rare instances where you saw the incumbent lobbying for more debates than the challenger.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, let's go. Here we go. Auditor General, Attorney General, and State Treasurer. These are hugely important offices. Both of you have done work on that for years. Who are these candidates? They're being pushed out by the media covering the presidential race and the Senate race. John, where does all this go?
I'm sorry, what races? No, I mean obviously these are very important contests. I mean, particularly the race for Attorney General, pitting two guys from Montgomery County against each other, the Democrat Josh Shapiro, County Commissioner, the Republican John Rafferty, a longtime state senator. I mean, the reason people are probably paying attention to this is because of the Kathleen Kane mess and her criminal conviction. That next person there is going to have a huge task ahead of them, to the extent that voters are paying attention to any of these three so-called roll-offices race, it's probably that one.
Go ahead.
For people who don't believe these races aren't important or who don't understand the offices, all I say is remember that 4 years ago, 2 of the 3 people that were elected were convicted of felony. What more do you need to know? Let's be a little more careful about picking our candidates.
It's Pennsylvania, right?
That's right, exactly.
Where we do have
Welcome
an awful lot of
the Illinois
and
of
the other
East.
thing, Brad, is they often, 3 of the 5 attorney generals have done what? Run for the governorship of the state,
Stepping
right?
stone, that's right.
So, and one of them was successful.
That is correct. Of course, Tom Corbett. But it's like the way Secretary of State used to be in the early days of the Republic. It was a stepping stone to the presidency. Now it's the row offices here for governor.
That's a good point. All right. The voters of this state are going to be asked to vote yes or no on whether to extend the tenure for judicial officials, judges, appeals court, common pleas, and some other judges from 70 to 75. Now, you won't know that on the ballot question. It'll just say,
shall it be increased to 75?
Shall be increased to 75. Does anybody know about this?
I mean, this is one of the sort of great undercard issues of the entire campaign. It got litigated before the state Supreme Court. Ron Castile, the former Chief Justice, and Dick Sprague both sued, claiming that the language was overbroad. The Senate countersued, claiming that people will know exactly what's going on. In any case, there'll be explanations at the polling place in case they get confused. When was the last time you stopped to read something in a polling place? You have your head down, you're getting into the booth, and you're getting the heck out of there. And the question itself is, if you don't know that the judge's retirement age is now 70, you just think, oh, well, I'm retired at 75, sure, what the heck? But it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
And of course, I think we know certainly there's at least one vote in favor of this, because the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court turns 70 on December 14th.
Oh, that's right. So if this passes, then the Chief Justice gets to serve.
If this does not pass, Thomas Taylor is out in 2 months.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, before I let you go, are we going to have turmoil after this election? We're going to end on this.
I fear that
people going to accept the outcome.
I fear that there'll probably be some degree of turmoil, even if there's a definitive result for, say, Hillary Clinton or one for Donald Trump. You'll have, we've talked to people who will say they're not, on both sides, will say they're not recognizing the future administration. If the race is tight, and when we wake up on Wednesday morning, it could just be a mess.
You agree?
I do. I don't know in what form it will come, but this is as divisive as I can remember seeing society in general when it comes to politics. And social media is not helping.
And you can imagine either candidate, depending, who cares, for the sake of just this hypothetical, who wins? It won't be a hypothetical after the election. Imagine them getting along with Congress, which is likely to stay Republican.
I'm sorry, what does that mean? Getting along? That doesn't happen anymore.
They're already saying in a putative Clinton administration is going to be 4 years of subpoenas and investigations.
Some are already saying impeaching someone who hasn't even won an election
hasn't even done anything yet.
All right, we're not impeaching anybody on this show. In fact, what we have coming up, easy money, why you should be aware of that. We'll get into that with our popular financial literacy update in a few minutes.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
Welcome back to the program. Well, joining me as often is Mike Wishnow, and joining me this week is Anna Nauss. I got it right, Anna Nauss. Yeah, they're of course with the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Do I got that right, Michael?
Yes, sir.
All right. Look, I'm going to start with you. Protect yourself from this easy money. People want to give us something. It's the holiday season, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What do they want to give us?
Absolutely. It's funny. The holiday season, we're cheerful. We're giving, it's charitable, and what happens? The fraudsters take advantage of that, right?
Yeah.
So you get all the free money or the easy money in the mail, the solicitations. You get all the scams in your email and in your text, right?
Right, I mean, you're exactly right.
Let's talk about one of them that comes up all the time is paydays. Payday. I hear that. Explain that to what's payday?
Payday lending is where they come in and they try to, again, preying on your emotions and everything with the holiday season, promising you quick money. But unfortunately, with that usually comes a very hefty interest rate. And you can end up getting yourself in quite a spiral between the higher interest rate and you're trying to make the payments, and it just continues to perpetuate.
A lot of times what it looks like is an actual check. You get a thing that looks like a check from ABC lender. All you need to do is sign the back, and here's $1,000 for Christmas money.
Now we have done this payday lending thing for a couple of years.
Yes.
You all have been, saying beware. But let's do this. So it comes to you. You get this ad. Somebody approaches you in some way. What should you do?
Don't use it.
You have steps to consider that are important for the folks out there.
Right. I would check with your credit union or bank for short-term loans. They're most often at a lower interest rate, and they're there to help you. As a credit union, we're there looking out for the welfare of our members. We don't want you to take advantage of things that are going to put you in a worse position than what you're currently in. As we talked earlier with Mike, it is an emotional time, and easy money seems like the way to go. But again, beware of that high interest rate and how you can get yourself into a cycle where, a simple $500 loan can end up costing you quite a significant amount more as you pay it back.
Yeah, I like this. Willie Sutton used to walk into a bank and he would hold the bank up. Now it's a little more subtle, and the hackers have a way of doing it, getting your money. But in the end, it's the same thing, isn't it? Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to be very careful online who you're using. Make sure that the sites that you're visiting are indeed the sites. There are spoofed sites. There are phishing where you might get something in your email. Check out ABC, and you go to ABC and it's not really ABC, and they take your financial information. It can turn into identity theft. It can turn into
good point.
Fraud. It can turn into a lot of things.
All right, we're going to, and the cybersecurity thing, if you don't believe us, ask Hillary Clinton, right? Because that's all been in the news. All right, how to protect yourself from plastic fraud. That's not a new kind of fraud, but we'll get into that in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, advancing quality, improving lives. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Well, we're trying to help you save your money, protect yourself. Anna May Nauss is joining me along with Mike Wishnow from the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. All right, Michael, let's go to this. All right, you got these credit cards. What should people do?
Well, I mean, certainly you want to keep your credit card information confidential. You don't want to give it out to a party that you don't know.
Right.
You want to be very careful with the sites you visit.
Right. And I think the one thing you want to be careful of is when you are on a site, make sure it has that HTTPS or the lock symbol so that you know you are on a secure site. And not to share the credit card information. Yeah. Like if someone sends an email, don't respond and provide your credit card by email. That's how they fish.
Or even over the phone if you don't
Correct.
know, if you're not sure. That
and the other thing is your financial institution, whether it's a bank or a credit union, will not ask you for your card number. They know it.
There you go.
So, I mean, if somebody calls...
Michael, are people easy with these in a sense because what are they responsible for, like $50 or something?
Exactly.
So people say, okay, you know, they're a little easier because it's not like they're going to take their whole bank account.
Yeah, there is a limited liability on a lost or stolen card as long as it's a Visa or MasterCard.
Yeah.
But that said, the other issue is identity theft. And they can take that card and apply for other cards with a little bit more of your information, and it can get away from you pretty quickly.
And then it can come back and affect your credit report as well and your credit score if people are out there using your information.
I can't find someone, I mean, I know several people, not one, who've had their identity stolen.
Yes.
And my wife had hers stolen.
Ooh.
And I want to tell you how
it's a nightmare.
difficult it is to straighten it out. I mean, hours and hours. There's a lesson. Hours and hours and hours spent trying to restore your credit, trying to undo the damage. So it's stolen. What do you do?
Well, the first thing you want to do is contact your financial institution. If it happens to be account information or credit card information, put a freeze, a block on that account. We'll reopen an account if it's a compromised, a brand new account number, all new information. The other thing you want to do is contact the big three credit reporting bureau. Put a fraud alert on that. What that does is protects you just a little bit more. It asks them to do an extra step to identify if someone's applying for credit with your name or information. Steps to protect yourself. You're also going to want to contact your local police and file a report. That'll come back to help you as you go through the many things that you're going to need to do to restore the identity.
Yeah, one of the problems when you put that alert on is it makes it very tough then when you yourself are trying to use your credit, right?
Well, when you try to get new credit particularly.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, look, I want to thank you for coming on. These are really important tips. These are extremely important, and you know, maybe people just are a little more lax and easy as you go into the holiday season, and you know, as Michael points out, we're just more giving. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.